Hey guys, welcome to another Writing Workshop Wednesday. Today we're going to be talking about head hopping versus omniscient narrators. I am super excited to get into this topic with you. Are you excited? Did you see it? That was head hopping. In the text, along with my dialogue, you saw my internal thoughts about wishing I hadn't had all that coffee before I started filming. Then you read Rosa's internal thoughts. The text hopped from my head to Rosa's. So how is that different from the omniscient point of view? Doesn't an omniscient narrator know everything that's going on in every character's mind? If you find this topic unbelievably confusing, you are not alone. I know the difference when I see it, but for the longest time I had a really hard time explaining it to my students when they struggled with head hopping. I did a little research when I made this video, and frankly I came across a lot of book lists that claim to be all books with omniscient narrators, but I saw quite a few on there that were actually written third-person limited with multiple protagonists. It's not the same thing. I'm going to say that again. Omniscient POV is not the same as third-person limited with multiple POV characters. That's what we're really talking about today, and it's really crucial that you get that before we get into the head hopping. So let's say you're writing an epic fantasy with a huge cast of characters, and like 6 of them get POV time. Are you writing omniscient or third-person limited? To figure it out, all you have to do is answer one question. Who is the narrator? It might be the protagonist of that chapter, but it might not. And that's the key difference. In omniscient POV, the narrator is none of the characters. The narrator is godlike, able to peer inside everyone's minds. That's what makes writing omniscient POV so challenging, because you really have to pick and choose what you want to share with the reader and when. But an omniscient narrator has a voice and style all his own. He even has opinions on what's going on in the story. One big misconception about omniscient narrators is that they're objective. They are not objective. Honestly, that would be kind of a snooze to read. Your narrator, whether it's an omniscient narrator or your protagonist, should have a personality, a voice, opinions. In other words, a point of view. It is true that a lot of older books have a more objective omniscient narrator, but nowadays that's really kind of considered old-fashioned and not in the good way. You can still write omniscient narrators, just keep in mind that readers like to really connect with whoever is telling the story. So whichever way you go, make sure you have a voice. In third-person limited, one of your characters is the narrator. It's her voice, her style, her opinions, her point of view. So if you've got an ensemble cast and you have one chapter in the queen's point of view and another chapter from the knight's point of view and the third chapter is in a dragon's point of view, that's not omniscient. That is third-person limited with multiple points of view. So if you write a scene from the queen's point of view, all of the descriptions of the setting and all of the other characters in that scene, they're going to be colored with the queen's opinions and thoughts. So let's say we're reading this scene and she's reprimanding a knight and we're really feeling all her anger, and then all of a sudden we slip into the knight's head and we learn that he's fantasizing about cutting her head off, and then we're back to the queen's head. That's head hopping, and it's really jarring. So why is head hopping bad? Well, it diminishes tension for one thing, because you know what everybody's thinking. And no, you don't get that with the omniscient narrator, because while the omniscient narrator might know everything that's going on, he certainly doesn't share everything with the reader. Also, one of the best parts about novels that are third-person limited with multiple points of view is that you get to experience this one story through all of these different characters' eyes. Head hopping kind of spoils the fun, and honestly, it's lazy writing because it often results in telling instead of showing. So in the example I wrote in this scene, of course we want to show the reader something about the knight. He is reacting to what the queen is saying in some way, and we want the reader to know, is he frightened? Is he upset? Is he angry? But hopping over into his mind for a second just to tell the reader that he's fantasizing about cutting off the queen's head is telling. So let's revise this and show the reader how he's feeling instead. And remember, this is from the queen's perspective. That means it's not going to be an objective description of what the knight is doing. It is going to be subjective. It is going to be from the queen's point of view. How is the knight taking this? That's true third person limited. So now your reader can't wait to get to the next chapter in the knight's point of view so they can find out what's really going on inside his head and what he's planning to do next. Okay, so what would this scene look like if it was truly written in omniscient point of view? Remember, this is the only question you need to answer. Who is the narrator? It's not the queen anymore. It's omniscient. Your narrator is looking down on the scene from overhead. The descriptions of the setting and of all the characters are going to be colored with his opinions, not the queen's and not the knight's. Your narrator sees all and knows all, but he doesn't tell all. But you can have some fun with this because one of the great things about the omniscient narrator is that you can create great dramatic irony and tension by letting the readers know some things that the characters aren't aware of. So he might slip in a detail or two that the queen and the knight don't see. He might also foreshadow something that's coming that the characters aren't aware of. Two pretty famous examples of omniscient narrators are Death in The Book Thief and Lemony Snicket. In The Book Thief, Death follows a cast of characters and lets us in on all of their thoughts. He foreshadows that there will be, what else? A death by the end of the book, and a lot of tension is created because the reader doesn't know which character is going to die and why and when and how. The fact that the narrator knows doesn't diminish the tension, it just creates more tension. Lemony Snicket researches the Baudelaire orphans and tells their story. And as the series continues, he becomes an increasingly important character in the books. And that's why I call Death and Lemony two of the more extreme examples of omniscient narrators, because your omniscient narrator is probably not actually going to be a character in your story. What I mean is they're not going to be in your cast and they're not going to have an influence or effect on what happens. But if you really want to write with an omniscient narrator and you want to make it work, then he's got to have a clear personality and be kind of a real character in your mind. Start with a Lemony and scale it back a little bit. He has hopes and dreams and wants and needs and a clear personality, but he's not in the book. He can't affect the plot. He's observing and he has opinions on what he's seeing. For today's writing workshop activity, take a look at these two final head hopless scenes. One of them being third person limited from the queen's point of view and the other one being from an omniscient narrator's point of view. Assuming this is the same story, in both cases, the thing that happens next in this scene is that a dragon is going to crash through the window. Whatever happens after that is up to you. Try writing it in the queen's point of view and then writing the same scene that you wrote, but from an omniscient narrator's point of view. What does the queen focus on in that moment? And how does your omniscient narrator paint the scene for the reader? As always, I would love to see these if you want to go ahead and paste them in the comments below. That's it for today's Writing Workshop Wednesday. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to get notified every time I post a new video. And until next time, keep writing. Hey guys, welcome to